What's coming next, energetically, is a massive wave of victim triggering and healing. And believe it or not, this is a really, really good thing. The only reason we are now in this position is because enough people have already moved through their triggers of victimhood and trauma and wounding. That's the only reason we're here now. They've done it, they've anchored it. And now it's time for the next wave. But first, your daily dose of Daisy. Hey, girl. Now, I'm going to unpack this some more because not only are people healing their own trauma, but we are going through a process of transmutation for others. There are those of us who are participating in the triggering and the healing for others. And in addition, we are clearing our own lifetimes of karma. So we're being triggered into things we didn't experience in this life, but past lives. I have been through this in the past 24 hours. Well, in a lot in the past, 40 plus years. Those of us who are empaths, we are deeply engaged in the work of emotional transmutation for the collective. So let's unpack all of this. But first, a bit of a trigger warning. As I unpack my experience yesterday, this might be too much for victims of physical violence and abuse. So I'm putting that up there up front. If this isn't for you, please scroll on. So those of you who've followed me for a while, you might know my voice is a little different, and I'm back in bed with a filter and my face is puffy because I had to go through emergency dental surgery yesterday. Yay. But before I went in, I spent a lot of time watching footage from the press conference of the victims. Of the victims, I can't say his name. My video will get flagged, but you know who. Victims of you know who. And I also spent more time going over the presser again from the Democratic Oversight Committee and the bipartisan group that is here to see this investigation through. So I was deeply swimming in that energy of violation, of abuse. I was watching with empathy, with an open heart, and also feeling such profound energies of finally conquering this pattern. Now, I've been speaking a lot about that since mid to late July. If you go back and watch my videos, there was a clump of them as I was working through and perceiving this energy of not only victims rising from the ashes, but that journey of moving from being victimized into a place of profound personal power. And I know a lot of you saw what I was going through before that when I was fighting off the whole Fox News thing, and it put me into an initiation of going from my own disempowerment and victimhood in needing to be the force, not just freeze, not just play dead or fawn to let it roll over. I was being forced to be the force, to push back, to stand my ground and say no. So in many ways, this year and the years preceding it, they've been a profound corridor for transformation for people to do this hero's journey, to go from victimhood into power. And in particular, this year, as the divine feminine is rising even greater in even more forceful amounts, many of us have been pushed into that next octave, not just outside of victimhood and healing, but into the full force of feminine empowerment. And this, in the first place, is what has even allowed the victims to come forward. And I'm saying this from a grand cosmic perspective. When we look at the energies, the patterns, where humans are at on Earth, it sort of creates this collective barometer, this collective measure of how far we can go as a collective. What is the population ready for? What are we ready to hear? What are we ready to deal with? And although these women have been speaking out for years, some of them for decades, it's fallen largely on deaf ears or hasn't been as forceful and impactful as it should have been. But now that the collective is healing these shadows and we're moving into a place where we've done enough healing that we can stand beside them energetically in our empowerment, that holds the energy for them to be stepping into a place where they are healed and they will be heard. And this very much goes hand in hand with what I've been speaking about, what Spirit has been saying since the big contest, that the more we fear that orange man and his administration, and the more we have those energies of the bad guys always win, nothing ever happens, that fuels them. But the more we withdraw our energy from him and from those patterns and put our energy in, no, it's time to rise, then that energy gets louder. He fades and the new energy takes precedence. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So now what's also happening is that as we move into this place where the victim stories are coming front and center, naturally it's going to trigger a lot of people who haven't fully worked through their own woods of victimhood. And a prominent example of that is Nancy Mays, who was seen running from the chamber, shaking and in tears, having a panic attack because she was a victim of this kind of abuse, and that triggered her deeply. But what this will look like for people who haven't had those particular wounds in this lifetime, but are still energetically participating in this rising, in this healing. Remember how I've said, I volunteer as tribute. That's something that many people in this lifetime are doing on a public scale to be seen as the ones who are going through an experience so that we can clear our experiences through their example. Well, there's another layer to this. We, who have not suffered those wounds, are in our own ways volunteering as tribute to help energetically clear and transmute this energy. And that's what happened to me yesterday. A few months ago, I talked about this whole dental thing where I was like, I've been putting it off. I didn't want to do it. And now it's becoming a crisis and I have to deal with it. Well, yeah, I still didn't deal with it. Head in shame, I still didn't deal with it. It stopped hurting. I forgot about it. I dragged my feet, yada, yada, until I woke up in crisis yesterday. Swollen face, infection, searing pain, and I had to finally deal with it. So yesterday was the day I went in for emergency surgery. Now, I've said I have dental fear and dental trauma before, which is why I've been avoiding it for literal years, but I really acutely felt it. I felt that fear as I was in the chair. But what I noticed, I was really analyzing this, sort of stepping back as I was going through the experience. And I was like, why? I mean, this is bad. Nobody likes the dentist, of course. So, like, why does this trigger such a trauma response? Anxiety, shaking, panic. Why does it trigger that? And as I was there in the chair with these perfectly lovely, kind dental professionals and undergoing this procedure that's very routine, I felt the acute trauma of someone, oh, I'm going to feel it again, of someone who is held down and things are being done to their body that are scary, that are painful. Someone is inside your body hurting you and you can do nothing but lie there. And as I had that realization, I had this flood of emotion and flood of energy that this is what that victimhood trauma is. I've never been through that kind of victimization in this lifetime. I likely have from others because such is the human condition. But I had been tuning into the press conference and been tuned into these energies in general. And as someone who is deeply involved in the work of transmutation, healing for others, I knew this is exactly what was happening. And I knew this especially as I left the dentist office and I got back in my car and I just began shaking and crying. I felt this wave of vulnerability and all the emotions that come with it of having survived this trauma. Again, not even my trauma, but the trauma, that kind of trauma. And I just sobbed. I just cried and cried. And I called my husband and I literally sounded like a child. I sounded like a child on the phone. I was just in this place of tender victimhood and I needed someone to hear me and I needed someone to hear me say, I was hurt. I was hurt and I was scared and it was awful. I just needed to be witnessed in this pain that was mine and it wasn't mine. And that's what we're all doing together. So I wanted to share this story because so many of you are going to be triggered in ways that you are not even expected. You're not even expecting this. It might not make any sense. It might feel too big or it might feel confusing. So just know and understand that this is part of our work together, that we're all participating in this collective healing work together. And it is so, so needed and so necessary. So I just want to send my love and solidarity as you're going through this. I'm going through it with you. We are all in this together. And it is serving a profound, profound purpose. This is important. So if you feel like you're falling apart at any time through this, this is why it's important. You need to feel it to heal it. And I'm right there with you.